Significance of the Book of Leviticus, NIV, a call to holiness. The central theme of Leviticus is holiness. God repeatedly commands his people to be set apart, just as he is holy. This is seen most clearly in verses like, "Be holy because I, the Lord your God, am holy." Leviticus 19:2. Leviticus teaches that correct worship and right living must flow from a heart transformed by God. It isn't a mere ritual, it's about becoming like him in character and conduct, covenant and relationship. Leviticus was given after the Israelites left Egypt and came to Mount Sinai. God had delivered them and now instructed them how to live as his people in a covenant relationship with him. The laws, sacrifices, and rituals were designed to maintain that relationship and show both God's holiness and the gravity of sin. Sacrifice and atonement. One of the most prominent features of Leviticus is the sacrificial system, which pointed forward to atonement for sin. Burnt, grain, peace, sin, and guilt offerings outlined in Leviticus were ways for Israel to confess, seek forgiveness, and restore fellowship with God. In Christian theology, these rites foreshadow Christ's ultimate sacrifice on the cross, fulfilling what the animal sacrifices could only symbolically represent. Moral and social ethics beyond rituals. Leviticus contains laws that govern moral behavior, community life, and justice. Leviticus 19 includes commands like loving your neighbor as yourself, long before Jesus quoted it in the New Testament. These ethical teachings show that holiness also extends to everyday relationships and community care. Purity, identity, and separation. Leviticus distinguishes between what is clean and unclean, not merely in a physical sense, but as a spiritual metaphor. These laws constantly reminded Israel that they were to be distinct from surrounding nations and devoted to God. This distinction highlights how holiness touches both worship and daily life. Application of Leviticus today, especially for Christians reading the NIV. Christians generally do not apply Leviticus literally in every detail, because the new covenant in Christ fulfills and transforms the old sacrificial and ceremonial system. Hebrews 10:1-14. However, Leviticus still has deep, relevant application. Holiness is still required. Even in the New Testament, believers are called, "Be holy in all your conduct." 1 Peter 1:15-16. God still calls Christians to reflect his character in thought, action, and relationships, understanding sin, atonement, and grace. The sacrificial system helps Christians comprehend the seriousness of sin and the cost of forgiveness. Leviticus shows that sin separates us from God, and only a perfect sacrifice can restore fellowship. In Christ, believers find true atonement, a sacrifice that satisfies God's justice once and for all. Worship with heart and life. Leviticus teaches that worship involves surrender, obedience, and dedication. Today, this translates into offering ourselves as living sacrifices, Romans 12:1 NIV, worshiping God in spirit and truth rather than through animal offerings. Worship is not just attendance, it is whole life devotion. Moral and ethical living. Many laws in Leviticus show God's heart for justice, compassion, and community integrity. These moral principles still guide Christians. Love your neighbor. Care for the vulnerable. Pursue righteousness and fairness. Personal and communal purity. While ritual purity laws don't name modern practices exactly, the principle of personal purity and spiritual discernment remains. Believers are still called to live in moral purity, avoid behaviors that harm the relationship with God, reflect Christ's purity in daily life. Summary. Leviticus is significant because it reveals God's holiness, teaches the gravity of sin and the need for atonement, structures community, worship, and moral life, foreshadows Christ's sacrifice, calls all believers then and now to holy living. Applied today, shapes Christian understanding of holiness and worship, enhances appreciation of Christ's atoning work, grounds believers in ethical, relational, and spiritual living according to God's character.